Hi everybody, my name is Sandy Mill. I am the Admissions Director at Sidney Sussex College, part of the University of Cambridge, and we're going to continue this series of videos looking at demystifying the whole Cambridge admissions process, giving you every bit of information you need in order to make really strong applications to Cambridge or other top universities this year. And this particular video really is going to be very specifically Cambridge focused, and it's going to be looking at one of the most feared, I think, parts of the Cambridge admissions process, often due to a lack of information or a lack of understanding as to what it's all about and why we do that. And those are the admissions assessments that form part of our admissions process. Now, it's worth noting that a lot of people do get stressed and worried about these, but with a good amount of knowledge and knowing what you're getting into with each one and a good amount of preparation, our assessments really aren't anything to be too stressed or too worried about. So what we really want to do with this video is give you the lowdown as to why we do them, as to how they operate and how you can best prepare for this part of your admissions process. So in order to properly examine the Cambridge admissions assessments, I think one of the most important things to do first is to be able to understand exactly why it is we ask prospective students to do admissions assessments. At the end of the day, it would be a lot easier for everyone involved if we didn't do them whatsoever. You know, there's a whole lot of time and person power required in actually creating, marking and administering the assessments, a lot of preparation and worry that goes on the parts of the students as well. It would be far, far simpler not to require them. But we get a lot of valuable information which helps us make our admissions decisions from these assessments that we simply couldn't get from anywhere else. Now, the admissions assessments are fairly new. They only came in around about 4 or 5 years ago when the UK government stopped students from doing AS levels at the end of year 12 in England. And the admissions assessments were brought in to replace this data that we had lost from this, because for us at Cambridge, success at AS level was a fantastic indicator about whether a student was going to be successful or not in our degree courses. So by bringing in the new admissions assessments, the plan was to be able to get some of this data back to be able to help with our admissions decisions and see who was going to be best suited to the teaching and learning environment here at the University of Cambridge. So the admissions assessments were designed with this in mind, to be able to assess people's aptitude and potential and the skills that they've got within the systems of teaching that we employ as a university. One advantage of this as well is it gives us a very common set of data which every candidate can have, whether they are from the UK, from overseas, wherever, to be able to look at everyone by the same metric on that performance, to be able to look at who was stronger or who was weaker in those regards to the skills that were being tested. And we've got a lovely common data set that we can use in that way. Admissions assessments can be tweaked as well to mean that we can look very much in depth at the aptitude of a candidate, whereas a normal exam would be marked, say, for everything from A star to a U. We can really focus, we know that we're going to be just getting the top level candidates here. So the questions can be a little bit harder overall and give us a chance to really get an idea of where people lie within those A and A star grade boundaries that our candidates are very likely to have. So we can get much more granular, much more in detail as to being able to assess the candidates in that way. They also mean that we can concentrate our interviewing resources a little bit better. We can use these results in conjunction with every other part of the application that we've received to that point in order to deselect a candidate. Now, it is worth noting that deselection is only really used in a case where we are just absolutely certain that the candidate would not be capable of getting a place. If we think that a candidate is realistic as an applicant, they should receive an interview. The admissions assessment is rarely going to be the be-all and end-all regarding this. We're also going to be taking into account everything from the UCAS application, including predicted grades, teacher assessments, etc., in order to make that decision. That being said, a poor performance in the admissions assessments can make deselection more likely for a student. So with good preparation and making sure that you're ready for these assessments, you are increasing your chances of being able to get yourself to that interview and onto that next stage in the admissions process. So there's a whole range of uses for these assessments. It's worth it for us, the time, the money and the effort to put these together, and worth it hopefully on your end as well to make sure that we're giving you every opportunity to succeed and get to that next stage of the applications process. Now, key information regarding all admissions assessments, and the most important thing I think I can say, the first place to look is our undergraduate study website. The link is up on the screen right now, and I will try to remember to post it in the sort of comments or in the description for this video. Details on every single admissions assessment that we require as a university are on that website. First port of call for anything. It gets updated very regularly, so if some details are currently missing at the time of watching this video, keep checking back to that website as those get updated. And as well as that, there are loads of preparation materials which are up there to help you. Mark schemes, we've got specifications, practice papers. We'll talk about how you can use those later on, but they are all centrally there. That website will tell you if you need to take an assessment, whether it's pre-interview or at interview, and all the details of what that assessment will be like. And again, it's worth noting, we consider all these applications holistically. The assessment is just one part of that application. The undergraduate study website contains a whole host of information. It's absolutely fantastic. It should be your first port of call if you're looking to get information about any stage of our admissions processes. So, I'm going to very quickly sort of look at the pre-interview assessments first before we look at interview assessments and how they operate, and then we'll go into how you can prepare for any assessment that you might be facing as part of your application. Now, for some subjects, you have a pre-interview assessment, and you can see the range of subjects for 2020 up on the screen right now, which do require a pre-interview assessment. If you notice, many of those are science-related subjects. For pre-interview assessments, you will need to register for these by the application date of October the 15th. Now, it's your responsibility as a student to make sure that you're registered, but typically your school will be the ones that are doing the registering for you. So make sure they know well in advance that you're thinking of making an application to Cambridge, if that is the case, and make sure you tell them that you need to take a pre-interview assessment if that is the case. If you're applying just on your own, there are further details on that undergraduate study website about how you can get yourself registered for an assessment. But it is absolutely vital that you do so. I remember interacting with a student a few years ago, and she was going to be taking medicine, so therefore at Cambridge it would be the BMAT for that. And we were in an outreach session, and it came to light, she put her hand up and said, well, what if I haven't registered for the assessment? And this was 2 days before the deadline. It turned out actually that she hadn't registered for the BMAT at all. Her teacher in the room was completely surprised that he just had no idea that she was looking at BMAT universities. And it turned out, in fact, that all of her choices for medicine required the BMAT assessment. Now, I don't know whether she got to take the assessment in time. I don't know whether she was able to register and get that all sorted. But the fact of the matter is, it was the student's responsibility to ensure that the school had registered her. If she hadn't have been able to, that would have been her fault in this case, unfortunately. And the last thing I want for anybody to happen is that they miss out on being able to apply properly for the place at the university that they want to do so because they haven't managed to get registered for the assessment, they haven't told people what they're doing, they haven't got the right information about what they need to do. So students, I cannot stress this enough, it is your responsibility. Make sure it's done nice and early, get that registration in, so you're not worried about making sure that you're going to be able to take the assessments that you need. Now, these pre-interview assessments are typically sat at an authorised test centre. For most of these, this is your school. The BMAT may be an exception for this, and they're typically taken at the end of October or the beginning of November. The date is usually confirmed in the summer, nice and precisely, nice and early, so that everyone knows when those are going to be happening. If you are a mature applicant, it is worth noting that you do not need to take pre-interview assessments other than those for medicine or veterinary medicine. You'll have an at-interview assessment for those instead. So that's if you're over 21 at the age of application and if you're applying to a mature college. If you're applying to a college that accepts both mature students and standard age undergraduates, you will still need to take the admissions assessment even if you are over the age of 21 at the time of applying. Medicine is slightly different to many of the other pre-interview assessments because the assessment is the BMAT, which is used by quite a few universities across the country. So you can either sit that in September or November, as opposed to the kind of October date for the remaining admissions assessments. If you are applying to Oxford, by the way, and while this is a Cambridge-centric video, they only accept the November sitting of the BMAT. And the structure is very different to that of the other medical tests, the UK CAT. So the BMAT also includes a section on your scientific knowledge, which will need a good deal of preparation, and has an essay section seeing about your ability to write and structure arguments. And both of these will need extra specialist preparation. So if you're applying to BMAT universities, wherever those are, make sure that you're specifically preparing for the BMAT. It might be that you're taking both the BMAT and the UK CAT, so in which case you'll need to arrange and prepare for both. There is a cost for the BMAT, and there is financial support available if you require it for that. Just look on their website, and the link is up there on the screen right now for you. There's preparation materials up there, links to all that detail about test centres, about when you can take the assessment, and the potential finance help if you need it. But get on it nice and early and start your preparation particularly early for the BMAT, because it does require a good amount of preparation time. Now, some assessments are taken at interview, mostly in a number of the arts and humanities subjects here at Cambridge. And what this means is that this will be scheduled in to part of the interview day that you'll have if you are offered one. Some colleges will require their own assessments in certain subjects as well. So it wouldn't be for every single college, but they will state on their websites that they may have an additional assessment for these subjects that wouldn't normally have one. What I would advise doing is, once you've checked the central website, the undergraduate study website, for if an admissions assessment is required at your college, double check as well on the college website that you're applying for whether or not they expect an additional assessment. So you may end up taking both a pre and at interview assessment in some very rare cases, or whether or not they have one that isn't a centralized assessment, just to make sure so you know what is coming ahead. It's also worth noting that if you make an open application and you're allocated a college, you may want to check the website of that college that you've been allocated to for interview, but in all likelihood, the information will already be there on your interview schedule that you would have received, saying whether or not you've got an assessment to apply for. I would look on the college websites to see information about the format of the assessment and what you're going to need to prepare in order to do it. Any assessments that you take at interview, you'll be forewarned about, you'll be told when they are in your interview day, as you receive a whole timetable about what will be happening at your interview. There's no cost for them, they will typically be sat in the college as part of your interview, and they'll give you the materials that you need in order to do it. Might be good to make sure you bring, pencil case, a couple of pens, etc., a calculator if required, but other than that, everything should be provided for you for that assessment. So, some things to double check and make sure that you look at when preparing for these assessments once you know whether there is going to be one or not. As I said, double check your college websites to see if there is an additional assessment that you might have to take as part of it. If you are taking an assessment, make sure that you have made the college aware of any accessibility requirements that you may have. If you have a learning difficulty of any time or any specific requirements, you need to make sure that the college is informed so that they can account for those. If we don't know about them, we can't provide what you need in order to succeed. And I should say, it is never a disadvantage. As long as we know that there is a need, we can make sure that that is fulfilled. And you will not be marked down in any way for having an educational need. So if you need extra time, if you need certain coloured filters or certain printing done to make sure that you can access the work, if you need access to a laptop, those can be provided. You should make sure you report in your UCAS application that you have a requirement when it comes down to any assessments. If you're unable to do so, if you forget, or if you just want to make sure, feel free to email the admissions office at the college that you're applying for, and they will be able to make sure that your need is accounted for. It's worth noting as well, assessments are not marked on a pass-fail basis. We're not looking for a specific score from individuals. What we'll be looking at is the range of scores that are achieved by the applicants to that college in order to see how well applicants have done. So when people say, how do I know if I've passed or not? You can't really, because we're looking at grading these as a cohort, not by some set scoring metric. So pass and fail doesn't really exist when it comes down to these assessments. It's about how well you do overall on it compared to the rest of applicants, and then again, in conjunction with all the other information that we have from your application. A note about mathematics before we talk about preparation for assessment. Mathematics does not have a pre-interview or an at-interview assessment as standard, although some colleges may have an at-interview assessment for it. Instead, we expect mathematics offer holders to take STEP, and this forms a condition as part of the offer that mathematics students may be given. Much like when we say we expect people to get certain grades at A level, for example, 2 A stars and an A typically for mathematics, we will also set as part of that condition that an offer holder must achieve a certain grade in specific STEP papers, typically papers 2 and 3. Your offer will tell you which papers to sit, which grades that you're expected to get, and these assessments are done later in the academic year. They are not done in the sort of December, January time when the offers are being carried out. Make sure you prepare heavily for it. STEP is very, very tough. You do need to make sure you spend a lot of time preparing for it, and details can be found at the website, which is up on the screen right now. There is a cost to take STEP. Financial help may be available through your schools or potentially through the university if necessary, if you need it. So if finance is a problem and you have to take a STEP condition, contact your schools first. If that doesn't work, contact the college at which you've applied to. We are keen to make sure that nobody loses out on a place for financial reasons for any student at all. So make sure you do get in touch if that is a genuine difficulty, please. So let's wrap things up by talking about how to prepare for these assessments. And I think a lot of the fear that comes from these admissions assessments is once again, it's fear of the unknown, not knowing what to expect. I think the secret really is that Cambridge admissions assessments are in many ways no different from any other exam or assessment that you will have taken in your school career to this point. You never know exactly what is going to be coming up on an exam, but you do know what the syllabus is, what the structure of the paper is. And that is exactly the same with the Cambridge admissions assessments. You can prepare based on that and be ready for whatever set of questions is going to be coming for you. And the good news is, if you're applying to Cambridge, you're probably pretty good at exams already. You've probably had a great history of doing well and getting high grades up to this point. So you've probably got most, if not all, of the tools and skills you need in order to succeed. It's just a matter of doing what you would normally do for nearly any other assessment. So first up, download the specifications, the practice papers, and the mark schemes from the undergraduate study website. Link, as I said, is in the description below. You saw it earlier on in this video. We make sure those are up there so you know what is coming, so you can prepare for the style of the assessment, the timings that you're going to need to work through, exactly what sort of thing is going to be in each section. It's the same at school. You start off when you're looking at exams, looking at how the questions are structured, what's required from a part A answer, from a part B, from a part C, how long you'd spend on each. Break the assessment down in exactly the same way. Make sure you're familiar with the format. Think about, okay, I need to know how long I need to spend on each question. Does this require a short answer, a full essay answer? How long should I be taking on each bit? How many paragraphs do I think I need to write to cover the things in the mark scheme? You can break that down really simply. Understand the structure and the format of the exam paper means that you've actually got a much greater chance of success. And I think too few people really break it down as they would normally do with an A-level exam paper, an AS paper, a GCSE paper. Exactly the same concept will get you a long, long way. Look at the mark schemes as well. One of the most important things, I'm sure you will use these at school. You look at the mark schemes to see what the examiners are looking for. You can deliver that nice and easily, nice and clearly, so no one can say you haven't done it. Makes it easy for them to give you the marks. Fantastic, best chance of success. So examine those mark schemes. Look for the skills that we are looking for, and you'll be able to see, what you need to do in that essay, in that paper, and then you can practice doing that in as clear a way as possible. Check the specifications carefully as well for any knowledge that is required. Now, typically these are not knowledge-based assessments. We're looking for your skills and your potential. But in certain subjects, and specifically in the sciences, you are going to need to show some knowledge. For example, for the physics and natural sciences assessments, we are going to need to see some mathematical skills. The specification will set out exactly what we need to see so you can make sure that you practice it and deliver it. So look for those knowledge that's required there. It'll also let you know which skills are required. So for history, for example, I believe if I remember correctly, that source work might be a part of that assessment. It'll let you know that so you can practice those skills in your preparation. Get your teachers to give you some practice sources to respond to in the same way as the admissions assessment. If it's mathematical questions, give your teachers the syllabus. They might be able to set you some questions that have a similar sort of style to help you prepare, or at least test the same skills and knowledge that we are looking for. So use those specifications to your advantage. With all of these bits of information, the specifications, the mark schemes, the practice papers, I would recommend giving a copy to a teacher in your specialist subject as soon as you're able to do, so that they can help you with that preparation, help you come up with additional questions to kind of look at and practice those skills, as we just said, and to help get their insight on what you need to do. Teachers are incredibly experienced at setting and marking exams, working to mark schemes. So if you're having a bit of trouble passing those, understanding those, they will be able to give you a lot of help in doing so. Do not be afraid to ask your teachers for assistance in that way. Some further hints for preparation. Absolutely make sure you do at least one timed paper, please. Vitally important. You need to get used to exactly how the assessment works, how it runs, and doing a practice paper is key in doing so. You should do at least one timed paper. So make sure you save one of the practice papers on the website to do to time, to make sure that you're not going into that assessment blind, that you know how it feels, what you need to be doing, and how long to spend on each question. And when you do practice papers and questions, get your teachers to mark them using the mark scheme that's provided, so that you can see how well that you've done, pick up those improvement points. As a former secondary school teacher myself, I actually think one of the most rewarding and useful things you can do is mark the paper with your teacher, because then you're getting their insight on what we're looking for and what the mark scheme says, and you're learning that as you go with them. That discussion and dialogue is really important for understanding. Heck, we teach in that way here at Cambridge with the supervision system. So don't just get your teachers to mark it, get them to talk through their marking with you, or mark it together for that extra value to really get insight into what we're looking for from that paper. We mentioned before getting your teacher to set you similar style tasks, or ones that test the same knowledge and the same skills. And at the end of the day, once you know what's required, the knowledge and skills that are there, just prepare like you would any other assessment, really. Don't panic. It's the same skills, the same methods, the same style of revision will get you through that assessment and help you prepare in the best way. And revision is very personal. People do it in very different ways. By the time you're in year 13 and taking this assessment, you'll be well practiced in revision and you'll know what works for you. So trust those instincts, use them, and make sure you prepare as thoroughly as you would for any other important assessment that you are going to be taking. I think the key really is to make sure that you go online, you get the information you need to get rid of that worry, that fear of the unknown, and make sure you spend that time preparing for these assessments as you would with any other exam. They're not designed to be complex, and they're not designed to be able to be trained for. Anyone who's saying, oh, well, if you give me a whole bunch of money, I can train you to pass the assessments and do really well. We've designed our assessments in a way that they're really not able to be prepared for in that sort of way. You can't be coached through them. What we're looking for is skills and aptitude that show that you're going to learn well in the ways that we teach here at Cambridge. So prepare well, get the information that you need, and this process becomes a whole lot less stressful. You're going to feel ready to attack those assessments when they do come and hopefully achieve to the highest level. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to give me an email. My contact details will be on this page. And if you've got any questions at all about assessments or any other part of the Cambridge admissions process, please contact an admissions office at one of the colleges and they will be able to give you all the information that you need. It is never a negative on an application to ask for the information that you need to make sure that you're able to tackle any part of the application process to your absolute best. We'll be having more videos up on this channel fairly soon, covering things like personal statements and interviews, so do check back if you've enjoyed it, and best of luck with any admissions assessments that you're going to be taking.